Hello and welcome back, and in this video I'm going to tell you exactly how to study using just your textbook and nothing else. And I can do that because with all of the CeMAP changes that have just come into force, I have been studying myself for the new CeMAP 1 exam. So the new exam is called FSRE, which stands for Financial Services Regulation and Ethics. And as well as it being the new foundation for CeMAP 1, you can also sit it separately if you want to do your diploma in financial advice. So when this news came out, I registered for my diploma in financial advice and I got the textbook. Now this might look a little bit different to the textbook that you guys get sent out in the post, and that's because when I registered for DIPFA, or the Diploma in Financial Advice, they didn't actually provide a physical textbook, so I got this printed and bound myself because I can't learn off a screen, and I'm going to walk you guys through exactly how I studied for this exam. Now I haven't sat the exam yet, I'm due to sit that this week, so in next week's episode I will let you guys know how I got on, but this is what I did. The first thing I had to do was allocate myself some time because, let's be honest, nobody wants to read this. And I found it really difficult. Obviously, working around having a job and a 3-year-old and everything else, I had to fork out time in my diary to do it. And for me, that was an evening. Once my daughter had gone to bed, I could sit down and I only gave myself half an hour to 45 minutes of work to do every single night. And that is the sweet spot for me. Anything over 45 minutes, I don't really tend to pay much attention. So this is what I did. I would open up to where I was up to reading. I would spend 15 minutes and no more than 15 minutes. In fact, I'd set a timer on my phone, a countdown. I'd spend 15 minutes reading. Now, everybody's reading pace is slightly different. In the time that it takes me to read 10 pages, I know that Maria can read about 30 pages. So I would spend 15 minutes just reading the pages. Once that timer had gone off, I'd set another 15-minute timer, go back to the page I originally started on, and start going through with a highlighter and highlighting anything that I would consider to be key. I'd just do that for another 15 minutes. Usually I'd get through the material slightly quicker the second time round. But once I'd done that, I'd then spend the last 15 minutes of my revision sticking that information onto flashcards that look like this. So I like to use this little notebook, which I will link in the show notes, purely because you can take them off and they're color-coded and they're quite nice to carry around. The reason that I write them down is because I am a kinesthetic learner. And that means that if I write stuff down, I have a much higher chance of actually remembering what we've talked about. And that's because of a memory curve that I've spoken about in a different video, which basically says, once you study something, you remember 100% on day one. But as you go through a week, that amount that you remember drops and drops and drops until after a week, you generally only remember about 20% of what you studied originally. So that's the memory curve. I combat that with flashcards. And eventually, I have an entire textbook that looks like this. I've gone through, I've taken the key information, I've written it down in a separate way, and I'm going to be revisiting those flashcards before I sit my exam in the next couple of days. That is a way that everybody can learn. For context, even though I've been working with CeMAP now for the last 3 years, it took me about 70 hours of study with this textbook to get it all done. Now, I am both a slow reader and a slow writer because I'm quite severely dyslexic. Some people might be able to get through that in a lot quicker time frame, but you want to allocate yourself kind of 3 to 6 months to be able to get through it. Obviously, you can absolutely fast track that. You can look at something like an e-learning platform, which is designed to break it down into about 25 or 30 hours worth of learning. I will link that in the show notes so that you can see where that is. But if you just want to study with the textbook, follow that process. So 15 minutes of reading, 15 minutes of highlighting, and 15 minutes of writing it down in the flashcards. Make sure you come back for next week's episode when I'll let you know how I got on with the exam, and I will see you guys there.